Hey guys, it's Julie with Julie's Designs. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make this book set. This was sent to me by a customer. She sent me an inspiration picture and asked me if it was something that I could make, and I will post a picture of what she sent me. It was definitely something that I could make, and I thought it would be something easy for almost anybody to make, so I decided to turn it into a video. Now, I know this is my third book set video, but they've just been really popular sellers for me, but it's also something easy to make. So I will also post a link of all the other book set videos that I've done, and I hope y'all try to make this. It is really easy, and I think it's something that anybody can make. So let's go ahead and get started. For this project, you want to start off with 3 hardcover books. I also sanded down the words on the spine. That way, if they were embossed, it was smooth and I didn't have to worry about the words showing through or coming out once I painted it. Now, if you think that was my husband peeking in on my video, and I told him I wasn't cutting it out too, so oh well. Anyway, you can tape the pages with painter's tape so you don't have to worry about getting paint on your pages. I did it for this one to kind of show you that option, but on the other ones I'm just going to freehand it. I'm a messy painter, but I'll be a little extra careful not to get paint on it. I am using Rust-Oleum chalk paint in linen white. Now for this project, it doesn't call for chalk paint. I think any paint you have around the house will work perfectly fine for this because you're not sanding it down or anything. This is just what I decided to use. And you can also use any color that you want. The client wants white for the spine, but you can definitely use whatever color you want to go with your decor. So you want to paint the spine, and then you want to paint a little bit down, probably about 1.5 to 2 inches down on the sides of the books. And then you can just like set them up like a little teepee to let them dry and just go through all the books. Ended up putting 2 coats on all the books, going kind of extra thick on the spine where the words were, and then you just let them dry. Once your paint is dry, you're going to want to draw a line on each side of your book. That way you know where to put the paper, and so that it's even on each book, since this will be a book set. I'm using a vintage map. I just searched vintage maps on Google, looked at the images, and printed out some that I liked. I printed out 2 of the same maps for each book, but I ended up with 3 different maps. So every book set will have its own map. I'm going to be using Mod Podge. I buy it by the gallon, and I'll put a link. The last time I bought it on Amazon a few weeks ago, it was about $23 for a whole gallon, and I thought that was a great price because if you buy like a quart of it at Walmart or Hobby Lobby, it's super expensive. So you're going to put a layer of Mod Podge down on your book, and then you're going to put your map on top of the book, and then you just kind of want to smooth it out. Oh, also trim the map. You want to trim it so it starts, there's no white space, you know what I mean, from the printer. You want it to trim it so that it starts where the map is. Then you're going to repeat the process on the other side. I don't trim it down to size. I'm going to do that after in just a second. Mod Podge down, map on top, and just smooth it out. And then you're going to go ahead and trim the edges. Just cut them down evenly. It doesn't really have to be neat because you're not really going to see it, but since this is for a customer, I want it to make sure that the inside looks good as well. So you're going to trim it down and just put Mod Podge on the edges, and then just fold them over. Easy peasy. So you don't have to use a vintage map. This is what the client wanted, but the possibilities are endless. You could use music sheets, which are super popular. You could have your kids draw something. and put that on there with like a bright colored spine, or you could paint something or print out a painting, print out some floral. I mean, there's so many possibilities with this. And it's just really easy. All you need is some Mod Podge and a little bit of paint, some old books that you're not using anymore. I'm doing a set of 3 for this client, but you could definitely just do 1 book to have out on display, or you could do a whole collection if you wanted. So you just bend your edges over and push them down, and they will stay nice and glued to the book. The last step is to put a coat of Mod Podge over the top. This just seals it and kind of makes it waterproof and keeps it from getting messed up, since it is just regular plain copy paper that we are using for this. Doesn't have to be super thick. You just want to put a light coat on it just to seal everything in. Then set your books aside and let the Mod Podge dry. Next, I'll be using Waverly Antiquing Wax that I purchased from Walmart, some water, a brush, and a napkin. What I'm going to be doing is antiquing the map. In the inspiration picture that the client sent to me, the map looked like it was kind of old. So I'm going to use this method to distress it a little bit. Now, if you don't want your book set to look old or distressed, then you can totally skip this step. So I'm just putting the watered down antiquing wax on the book, and then I'm going to go ahead and wipe it off with the dry paper towel. And then just be sure to have like a wet towel nearby. That way if you mess up, you can just wipe the antiquing wax. I had gotten a little bit onto the white paint, so I just wiped that off with the wet towel. This is very forgiving, so if you mess up a little bit, you can definitely wipe it off. And you want to put your Mod Podge on before you do this. If you don't put your Mod Podge on the paper, what's going to happen is what it looks like right now, that's what it's going to look like. It's not going to wipe off. So if you want it super antiqued like that, then you can go ahead and do that. I didn't want it. I just wanted it slightly antiqued, a little bit more brown. So I like putting the Mod Podge on first and then antiquing after. And then I'm going to go ahead. Now in this step, I'm not using water. I'm just using the antiquing wax. And I'm just rubbing my brush on all the edges to make them brown and more distressed looking. And then I'm just lightly rubbing them with the dry paper towel just to soften them up slightly. And this will give your book set a nice aged look. This next step is also optional. The client wanted the book set to say, "This is us, our life, our story, our home." So I'm using the method that I use for all my signs and everything else. This is how I transfer my words onto items. So I have the words printed out, and then I have my carbon paper, and I'm going to write over the carbon paper, and that will transfer it onto the book spine. And then I'm going to take my black paint pen and I'm going to write over the words that I traced on. You could also use stamps. If you have letter stamps, that would work as well. Or you could just not do this at all if you don't want to. For the Our Life, Our Story, Our Home part, what I'm doing is I'm using the carbon paper to transfer it, but instead of using the paint pen to go back over it, I'm going to do it with pencil. That just gives it a little bit of a different look. The "This Is Us" will stand out more because it's a little bit bolder, and then these words will be a little bit more subtle. I just like the difference in that look. Now I'm just going to finish off this book set with some twine. I like to wrap twine around my book sets. It just keeps it all together and just finishes it off nicely. This twine I get from the Dollar Tree. It comes in a pack of 3 in the hardware section.